So in this video, I'm going to continue to answer and explain some questions regarding DNA and RNA, specifically some multiple choice questions from the IB. So this is part 3. So if you want to watch part 2, which basically answers this question, and part 1, which answers this question with details. So I don't just answer them, I try and explain them so it makes sense, so you don't have to memorize the answers. But yeah, so let's move on to part 3. And make sure to watch the individual videos that I made on RNA and DNA that actually explains them before you do these questions, because they'll make things a lot easier, since I can't explain in that much detail these questions. So let's just read this part first. So questions 10 and 11 refer to the following diagram of the DNA. So this is the diagram. 10 and 11. So 2 questions, multiple choice questions, will be based off of this diagram. So like I say in my other videos, I always recommend you start looking at the diagram in detail before you look at the question, just to make sure you really know what's going on. So if we look at this diagram, we know it's DNA because they said so. And it makes sense that it's DNA because it's double-stranded, meaning that there's 2 strands. So one strand running this way, running up, one strand running down on the other side. Because if it was RNA, it would only be one strand. The 2 strands wouldn't be connected to each other, right? Now, we know that DNA is made up of nucleotides. One nucleotide basically consists of this section. So the circle, the pentagon, and the rectangle. So the circle would be a phosphate group. This would be a pentose sugar, and this would be a base. The base is the part that holds the letters that code for something in your body. It's basically the alphabet letters of DNA. Now these nucleotides, so nucleotide is one of these units, they are connected to other nucleotides below it or above it, and this continues, and as they continue, this will just be, the longer they get, the whole thing would be your DNA. So this is a subunit, one section of it, and as it continues on, it becomes your DNA. Now, since I said they're double-stranded, which means that they're connected to the other side as well. So this is one side, this is one strand, this is the other strand, and the same thing happens on the other strand. Now, these 2 strands are held together by little bonds you can see here, right? These dashed bonds. And these units inside the nucleotide, so this nucleotide, you can see there's lines connecting these different shapes, the different groups, and that's also a different kind of bond. Okay, and so now let's get to the question. Now that we know what's actually going on in the molecule. But like I said, watch my video to make sure you know exactly this, because I explain it in detail in DNA. So let's open the question. So first, give it a go yourself to see if you know how to do it. So what does the structure labeled X represent? So like I said, remember, this is a bond. It holds together the different nucleotides. So this is one nucleotide, these 3 shapes, and it's connected to this nucleotide. Yep. Now, what kind of bond is that called? Is it a hydrogen bond, phosphate, covalent bond, or base? So if you know the basic structure of a nucleotide, you would know B is not correct, because B is simply the circle. It's a phosphate group. And you would know D is not correct, because D is this square shape. It's a base. So it's definitely not B or A, because B or D, because that's just a different structure. So it's going to be, the problem will be between hydrogen bond and covalent bond. So let's look at this diagram here, number 10, an explanation that I have. So covalent bond, let's use this one. First, hydrogen bond. So a hydrogen bond, how this one is easy to remember, in my opinion, is that a hydrogen bond sounds like hide. It sounds like something is hiding. It's a hydrogen bond. And this I remember because they always represent hydrogen bond as these little dotted bonds, making them feel like they're weaker. They're not as strong. Hiding, it's a hiding bond. And that's actually true, because this hydrogen bond, this hiding kind of bond, is not as strong as this bond here labeled by X, because that bond is called that bond that is labeled by X is simply called a covalent bond. Covalent bond. and covalent bond is far stronger. So it's easy to remember just by having that idea in your mind, the idea of hide. That bond is hiding. So you know that's a hydrogen bond. This bond is not hiding. It's a covalent bond. It's far stronger. So in this diagram, the X would represent a covalent bond, not a hiding hydrogen bond. So that's it for question 10. So typically I recommend that you first eliminate the wrong answers before choosing the correct one, because a lot of the time there are small tricks and things like that that you don't notice, and then you get the answer wrong. So always, if you have time, try and eliminate and find a reason for why the other ones are wrong. I found a reason for why these were wrong, so always try and do that if you can. Sometimes you just have to guess, but yeah. So let's move on to the next one. So the next question is also based on this diagram. First, give it a go yourself. So, what does the structure labeled Y represent? So we saw X, now we're going to Y. Like I mentioned in this question, this square thing is a base. So a base will be there. But we don't know in this case, we wouldn't know exactly which base, because we need to know what it's bonded to know what this base has got to be. Because there's always a pattern. A always binds with a specific base, and other bases always bind with another specific base. This is not random. So what I mean by this is, there's a diagram here, I can help you explain that. So what I mean by this is A, so you can see in this diagram here, they have A. A always binds specifically with one thing, never with anything else in DNA. Okay, A always binds with T, thymine, and C always binds with G, guanine. Now, how on earth can you remember this? So I have a way of helping you to remember that. So A with T and C with G always, and you can see this is A, so we already know it's thymine, because I just told you, but how can you remember that? So I have a way to help you remember that. A and T are always together. A, T, A, T. A and T are always together, and if you know adenine and thymine, A and T are always together, then you know the other two, because there are only 4 bases. Remember, only 4 bases in DNA, these 4. So if A and T are always together, then C and G must be together. Therefore, we know that this is a base, but what specific base? So even if one of the options were base, it'd be correct, because it is a base. But what kind of base? I think in this question they're referring to which specific one. See, there is no answer for base, but 2 of these are bases. We just got to choose the right one. So we know it's not G, because C always binds with G, and in this case A is binding with T, so we know it's thymine. Okay, but like I said, try and eliminate the other ones. So guanine we eliminated because that's binding with C. So why is it not R? Why is it not ribose? Because ribose is a sugar. It could be this kind of one. It's a sugar. It's a sugar in RNA. So even if they labeled this one, ribose wouldn't be correct, because this is deoxyribose sugar, not ribose sugar. Ribose sugar is in DNA. So last one, deoxyribose. So this could be correct, that's what I was saying. Deoxyribose represents this pentagon shape, but obviously they're not pointing to the shape. They're pointing to the rectangle, right? So they were mentioning different groups, not the right one. So that's why B is correct. So stick around for more. I will make part 4 with similar explanations to try and make it make sense. And I hope you understood that video and found it useful.